Centro Universitário UDC, Centro e Vila A, UDC Monjolo, UDC Medianeira, Georgetown University, American College of Preventive Medicine, Q-Menu, Purpose in Action.
Olá, é com satisfação que nós da UDC e colégios do grupo trazemos a toda a comunidade, alunos, professores e familiares, mais uma palestra, através de nossas parcerias internacionais com o professor Doutor Robert Carr, da Georgetown University, que fica em Washington, D.C., Estados Unidos. Ele é médico, com mestrado em medicina, doutorado em medicina preventiva. Também teve uma experiência espetacular na Força Aérea Americana como piloto de caça F-15, um Top Gun. Também teve uma experiência como gestor de uma empresa global multinacional, a farmacêutica GlaxoSmithKline. Vivemos um momento de pandemia, um mundo diferente. E ele, que já esteve algumas vezes em nossa comunidade, vem novamente trazer informações, o conhecimento, a sabedoria, boas energias, uma mudança de comportamento. E esperamos colaborar para a melhoria da qualidade de vida de cada pessoa de nossa comunidade, de cada família. Muito obrigado e boa palestra.
Hello, I'm Dr. Carr, the Chief Medical Officer for Kumanu, a behavioral health technology company. I've met many of you from my previous visits to UDC, and I so wish I could be there with you today personally, especially on this very important day of transition. But due to the pandemic, that option is beyond my control. I am, however, very grateful to be healthy and that technology allows me to share with you virtually today from Washington, D.C. Across the world, we have been facing unprecedented and challenging times. In our lives, in our work, in our communities, that's impacted ourselves, our minds, our families, our friends, and even our way of living and experiencing and expectations of the world. No one knows what to expect as we emerge from this pandemic crisis. However, the world is unlikely to return to normal, or at least the normal that we knew, anytime soon, and maybe never. So, how can we not only survive this, but flourish in a new normal? How can we take and look at opportunities during this crisis and to use this crisis to find meaning, growth, and optimism versus pain, fear, and distress? We all need to be able to adapt to this. How quickly and effectively we adapt determines a lot about the impact to us on our health and our overall well-being. The way we used to do things, our approaches and capabilities, and the assumptions we made about life may be unlikely or less effective in both this pandemic environment as well as in the new normal. And as this won't let up anytime soon, we still see uncertainty. So how do we deal with that? And until a vaccine is widely available to all, it is important that we take care of ourselves, especially so that we can be there for those that matter most, our families, our friends, our colleagues, and our communities. In spite of the uncertainty that remains around us, we all need to take a few moments for ourselves to explore and ensure that our own health and well-being is front and center, and we bring those things into greater focus. In times of uncertainty, we need to figure out what matters most and try to increase that self-awareness to manage our response to the uncertainty and the stress of this unpredictable environment. Friedrich Nietzsche famously stated, "A man with a why to live can bear anyhow." That's a powerful statement. A man with a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Research shows that our connection to our purpose, our why, and those things that bring meaning to us can be incredibly powerful, especially in times like these. It can help to build and strengthen our resilience, enhance our immune response, as well as help us navigate more effectively this ambiguity and uncertainty. Thinking about your purpose, your why, has been shown to activate this part of the brain, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, which allows us to better regulate our emotions, focus our attention, and quiet down this heightened stress response that's generated in the amygdala, another part of our brain. So what is your why? Take a moment and think about this. How can strengthening your connection to your purpose help you bear today's uncertain and stressful environment? It's only natural to worry and have concerns with uncertainty. In fact, our first response is to protect ourselves from the fear of the unknown, from the fear of change, and we engage that part of the brain that's related to survival. Our amygdala, that part of the brain that creates our fight and flight response, is our basic survival mechanism. It's activated and initiates our fear response, which is both mental and physiologic. It's a protective mechanism and a very natural response. It shouldn't be too surprising, given its role in that fear processing, that the amygdala plays a huge role in our level of anxiety. While fear is considered a response to a threat, anxiety involves the dread that accompanies thinking about that potential threat, one that may or may never materialize. The other part of the brain that engages when we connect to our purpose and values is the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain actually quiets down the amygdala and allows us to better regulate our emotions, think rationally, think future-focused, and more optimistic. The key and the challenge is to be aware of these emotions and how they are affecting our behavior. How can one turn fear or challenge into something worthwhile? How can you acknowledge the unknown and better accept some of the areas outside your control without anxiety? How can you replace fear and uncertainty with a new paradigm, a new mindset to control what you can and to let go of what you can't control? Using our intuition and our life skills, we can address the issues we face in a much more positive way. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. I'm reminded of Viktor Frankl, who was a psychiatrist who survived the concentration camps during the Holocaust, and in doing so, reflected on his own experience and how he observed the experiences of others. He found that we cannot avoid suffering and stress, but we can choose our attitude and we can choose how to cope with it, to find meaning in it, to move forward with renewed purpose based on that experience, however adverse it was. He described perhaps the most important human sentiment needed during times like these of significant challenge. That between stimulus and response, there is a space. And that space is our power to choose our response. And in so choosing that response, therefore, that lies our freedom and our growth. These are powerful thoughts. How often are we even aware of that space? We often go from stimulus to stress in a knee-jerk response without pause, without thinking. So we need to grow that muscle of awareness around this space and begin to intentionally regulate our response. This is what's called emotional agility, and it's a fundamental part of health and wellness. The need for emotional agility becomes even more important when uncertainty is present. We can let the narrative coming through to us own us, or we can create our own narrative, our own story, and thus use that story to moderate our emotions. A positive story, a hopeful story, an optimistic story. How we perceive our environment, though, is paramount. How we interpret the world around us has an influence on our subjective well-being. Developing skills to deal with adversity helps us become more resilient and positive. So how can you reframe what you're experiencing now into something positive? It starts by becoming more aware of what you're feeling, growing that muscle of self-awareness to better understand both your current emotions, your thoughts, and reflect on whether they are supporting you and whether they are aligned with your intentions. Do they benefit you? Are they serving you? Or are they against what you really want as an outcome? So acknowledging these negative thoughts, putting them into perspective, and taking positive action can lead to growth. Here's a simple emotional audit tool that maybe can help you become more aware of and regulate your emotions. Just take a moment and reflect on, what are you feeling now? Why am I feeling the way I do? How is what I am feeling affecting my actions? How are my actions affecting others? How can I be more aware of this space between my experience and my reactions? Are my actions really benefiting me and my intentions? How can I change my response? These are extremely helpful and can be used on a daily basis in a moment of emotional volatility or in a reflective time. All of these will allow us to take our emotional state and better regulate it so that we get the desired behavior and the desired experience we want out of our connections with others and our experience of our environment. While we should remain realistic about the facts and the seriousness of this current crisis, we can stop and reflect on what we may be able to learn from this experience. Studies have shown that we are under pressure and don't see the stress as harmful, but as opportunities to learn more about ourselves, to grow. We fare better. Research also shows that it may not be the stress that impacts our health and well-being, but the belief that stress is harmful or not. So how do you view stress? Is it an opportunity to challenge yourself to grow? What are some of the personal goals you can set during this moment? Personal goals such as, I discovered that I'm stronger than I thought I was. I changed my priorities about what's important in life. I've started to look at new paths for my life. Can we grow from this experience? Of course, absolutely. But we have to be self-aware of these opportunities to use this experience to grow. These are very similar to what happens in any kind of traumatic event and the growth that follows. Research has shown that people who experience post-traumatic growth from earthquakes, from tsunamis, from war, from cancer, from the loss of loved ones, all have an ability to use that life experience to grow. So we too can grow from our experience with this pandemic. Who do you want to be in this crisis and after? How can you maintain your own health and well-being? How can you be your best self for those that matter most, who may be struggling during this time? How can we move away from the fear of the unknown and its paralyzing emotions to learn more about yourself and to eventually grow from this experience? How can this experience make us more aware and better prepared for future pandemics or future crises that we will face? They will almost undoubtedly occur. How can you become stronger as a result of this experience? So stop and think about a time in your life when you experienced the greatest amount of growth, the greatest amount of personal growth. Chances are It was during a period of great challenge. So consider using this experience as that challenge to build personal strength and a self-transcending purpose. Going from the fear zone to the growth zone requires greater self-awareness and, like a muscle, needs to develop through regular practice and training. This is adaptation. Learning from our experiences, developing greater insights on how they affect you, and intentionally choosing your way forward. Let's grow from this experience. As we emerge to a new world after this crisis, I would encourage you to find ways, no matter how small, to express gratitude for each and every day. For your health, for your family, for your friends, your professors, your teachers, your staff, and your colleagues. Be aware of the positive things that have happened, not only the negative. This one action intentionally will center you on what's right with today and can lessen your stress response and can allow for more rational thought and actions, as well as a positive physiologic response. More importantly, it allows you and those around you to walk away from each day with a few positive emotions in the sense of pride, accomplishment that is deserving of all the achievements you've tried to make every day and the impact of the studying or the work that you are performing. Everyone has experienced different circumstances during this crisis, but by setting an intention for growth each day, not only will you gain back some level of control over your uncertain environment, but this positive action will help allay your anxiety, reduce worrisome thoughts, and allow you to be your best self and remain healthy and focused on the things that matter most in your life. I now leave you with some reflections. Our families held us up when we were learning to walk, while we were learning to become adults, and amidst the uncertainties of moving on, they once again become our ground and the arms that keep us steady. Our friends have become our family too, and they will continue to support each of us through this uncertainty and others yet to come. So for now, savor the goodbyes and welcome the new beginnings. Keep your purpose, your why, as your GPS, your Google Maps, guiding you on your life's journey. Please stay healthy, safe, and one day I hope our paths will cross again.